Hi, my friends. Today I want to present you a new story. Enjoy watching it. Every morning, I would leave my house with a banana tucked into my backpack, a small offering I had started bringing to the square a few weeks ago. The square was my sanctuary, a place where I could escape the chaos of my home life. My parents' arguments, though muted behind closed doors, still reached my ears, and the tension at home was a constant weight on my young shoulders. The square was different. It was peaceful, with its tall trees and neatly trimmed hedges. But what truly captivated me was the old man and his dog, who had made the square their home. The old man, with his scruffy beard and worn-out clothes, sat on the same bench every day. His dog, a faithful companion, lay beside him, eyes half closed, ears alert to any movement. I would watch them from a distance at first, fascinated by the bond between the man and his dog. They seemed to communicate without words, understanding each other in a way that made my heart ache with longing. It was a companionship I desperately wished I had, a friendship that was simple and pure. Sometimes I imagined what it would be like to have someone who understood me the way the old man and his dog understood each other. One day I gathered the courage to approach the bench. The old man looked up, his eyes crinkling into a smile. "Hello there, young man," he greeted me, his voice rough but kind. "Hi," I replied, a little nervous. I pulled the banana from my backpack and held it out. "I brought this for you, and your dog." The old man's smile widened. "Well, isn't that thoughtful? Thank you, son. Buddy here will appreciate it too." He gestured to the dog, who wagged his tail in approval. I sat on the edge of the bench, feeling the warmth spread through me as the old man peeled the banana and offered a piece to Buddy. They shared the fruit, and for a few moments, all was right in my world. This small act of kindness became a daily ritual, a silent promise I made to myself and to the old man and his dog. I didn't realize it at the time, but that bench was becoming more than just a place to sit. It was becoming my refuge. As the weeks passed, our daily interactions grew into a routine I cherished. I'd often stay longer, listening to Mr. Harris talk about his life while Buddy rested his head on my lap. It wasn't just about the banana anymore. It was about the companionship we all shared, a quiet understanding that filled a void in my life I hadn't realized was so deep. I started to look forward to these mornings, finding in them a sense of belonging I couldn't find anywhere else. And then there was the feeling of safety. The square, with its gentle rustling leaves and distant hum of city life, became a cocoon where I could momentarily forget the troubles at home. The old man's stories, sometimes filled with wisdom and other times with humor, gave me a new perspective on life, making me see the world through different eyes. My daily visits to the square became the highlight of my day. Each morning, I would sneak out of the house before my parents awoke, the banana carefully placed in my backpack. The square was quiet at that hour, with only a few early risers taking their morning walks. But my destination was always the same, the square bench where the old man and his dog waited. As the days passed, I began to spend more time with the old man, whose name I learned was Mr. Harris. Buddy, the dog, had grown fond of me, often nudging my hand for a scratch behind the ears or resting his head on my lap. The bond between Mr. Harris and Buddy was something I admired deeply. They were inseparable, two souls who had found solace in each other's company. I wondered if I could ever find a friendship as pure as theirs. One morning, as I handed over the banana, Mr. Harris chuckled. "You know, Kevin, you don't have to bring us a banana every day. Your company is more than enough." I shook my head, smiling shyly. "I like doing it. It makes me feel good." Mr. Harris nodded, a thoughtful expression on his face. Kindness has a way of doing that. It's like planting a seed. You never know what will grow from it. We talked for a while, with Mr. Harris sharing stories of his past and Buddy's adventures. I listened intently, my imagination painting vivid pictures of the tales Mr. Harris wove. He spoke of his life before he came to the square, and I realized there was much more to him than I first thought. I felt a connection with the old man that I had never experienced before, a friendship that was slowly blossoming with each passing day. But what I treasured most was the unspoken understanding between us. There was no need for grand gestures or words. The simple act of sharing a banana, a few stories, and the quiet company of a dog was enough to fill the void in my heart. It was a glimpse of the friendship I had always longed for, a bond that grew stronger with every visit to the square bench. I started to feel like I was part of something special, something that was just ours. On some days when Mr. Harris was quieter than usual, I found myself sharing bits of my life too. I talked about school, about my parents' constant arguments, and how the square had become my escape. Mr. Harris would listen patiently, nodding and understanding, never judging. He had this way of making me feel like my words mattered, like I mattered. Those moments were rare for me, and I clung to them, knowing how precious they were. The square bench became our little world, a place where time seemed to stand still. Each visit strengthened our bond, and I began to see Mr. Harris as more than just an old man who lived on the streets. He was a mentor, a friend, someone who saw beyond my age and circumstances. And Buddy, with his unwavering loyalty and gentle nature, became a symbol of the purest form of companionship. One morning, as I approached the square, I noticed something different. The bench where Mr. Harris and Buddy usually sat was empty. A sinking feeling gripped my heart as I scanned the area, hoping to catch a glimpse of them. But the square was eerily quiet, with no sign of the old man or his dog. My steps faltered as I reached the bench. I stood there, the banana clutched in my hand, staring at the empty spot where they should have been. My mind raced with possibilities. Had something happened to them? Had they left for good? The thought of never seeing them again made my chest tighten with fear. For the first time in weeks, I felt the sting of loneliness return. The square, once a place of comfort and companionship, now seemed cold and uninviting. I sat on the bench, my small hands gripping the banana as if it were a lifeline. I waited, hoping they would appear, but as the minutes ticked by, it became clear that they were gone. The day dragged on, and I found it hard to concentrate at school. My thoughts kept drifting back to the square, to the empty bench, and to Mr. Harris and Buddy. When the final bell rang, I rushed back to the square, my heart pounding with a mixture of hope and fear. But the bench remained empty. My heart sank deeper with each passing moment, and I began to wonder if I would ever see them again. I returned home that evening, my shoulders slumped in defeat. The house was just as chaotic as ever, with my parents arguing in the next room. But I didn't care. All I could think about was the old man and his dog, and the unsettling thought that they might be lost somewhere, needing help. I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, wishing I could do something more. As I lay there, my mind raced with worst-case scenarios. What if Mr. Harris was hurt, or worse? What if Buddy was alone and scared, wandering the streets without his loyal companion? The thought of them being in danger gnawed at me, making it impossible to sleep. I knew I had to find them, but I felt so small and powerless. Yet, deep down, I also knew that giving up wasn't an option. They had become too important to me. The next morning, I woke up determined. I decided that if they didn't return by the end of the day, I would start looking for them. I didn't know where to begin or how far I'd have to go, but I was ready to do whatever it took. The thought of not seeing them again was unbearable, and I wasn't ready to let go of the friendship that had brought so much light into my life. I vowed to myself that I wouldn't stop until I found them, no matter what. The next morning, I was up even earlier, determined to find out what had happened to Mr. Harris and Buddy. I started by asking the regulars at the square, the joggers, the dog walkers, even the lady who fed the pigeons. But no one seemed to know where they had gone. My worry grew with each passing hour. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. I spent the rest of the day searching the nearby streets and parks, calling out for Buddy, hoping he might recognize my voice. But the city seemed vast and unyielding, offering no clues to their whereabouts. I found myself retracing my steps to the square, hoping against hope that they would be there, waiting on the bench as if nothing had happened. But the bench remained empty, a stark reminder of their absence. At school, I could hardly focus. My mind was consumed with thoughts of Mr. Harris and Buddy. I imagined them lost, cold, and hungry, needing help but unable to find their way back. The idea of them suffering tore at my heart. During lunch, I confided in a friend, explaining my worry. She listened sympathetically, but there wasn't much she could do. This was something I had to figure out on my own. By the time school let out, I was more determined than ever to find them. I decided to broaden my search, venturing further from the square into parts of the city I wasn't familiar with. The streets were crowded with people, but none of them were Mr. Harris or Buddy. I felt a pang of frustration, but I pushed on, asking shopkeepers and passersby if they had seen an old man with a dog. As the day wore on, my hope began to wane. The city, which had always seemed like a backdrop to my life, now felt like an endless maze. With each corner I turned leading to more uncertainty. I started to wonder if I would ever find them, if they were even in the city anymore. But just as despair began to take hold, I remembered Mr. Harris' words about kindness being like a seed. Maybe this search was part of that, part of something bigger than I could see. By dusk, I was exhausted, both physically and emotionally. I returned to the square one last time, hoping for a miracle. As I approached the bench, my heart sank. It was still empty. I sat down, feeling defeated. But just as I was about to turn back, something caught my eye. A dog, familiar yet slightly different, was running toward me with an urgency that was unmistakable. It was Buddy. Buddy, I called out, my voice a mixture of surprise and relief. He bounded up to me, his tail wagging, but there was something in his eyes that told me this wasn't just a happy reunion. He was trying to tell me something. Without hesitation, Buddy started pulling on my sleeve, urging me to follow him. My heart pounded as I realized this wasn't just a casual greeting. Buddy was leading me somewhere and I had to follow. He led me through the streets with a determined pace, and I struggled to keep up. I had never seen Buddy like this before. It was as if he knew exactly where he needed to go and what he needed to do. We ran through the city, past shops and crowded streets, until we reached a place I hadn't expected, the hospital. Buddy led me straight to the entrance and then stopped, looking up at me with pleading eyes. My heart dropped. Mr. Harris must be inside, and if Buddy was here, something must have happened to him. With Buddy by my side, I rushed into the hospital, my mind racing the possibilities. The sterile smell of the hospital hit me as soon as I stepped through the doors, and I felt a lump in my throat. I approached the front desk, my voice trembling as I asked about Mr. Harris. The receptionist looked at me with a gentle smile. "Are you here to see Mr. Harris? He's been asking about his dog, Buddy. We didn't know who to contact, but it seems Buddy found you." She gave me his room number, and I quickly made my way to the elevator, Buddy staying close to my side. When we reached the room, I paused for a moment, gathering my thoughts before stepping inside. Mr. Harris lay in the hospital bed, his face pale and tired, but his eyes lit up the moment he saw Buddy. "Buddy, you're here," he whispered, his voice weak but filled with relief. Buddy jumped up onto the bed, licking Mr. Harris' hand, and I could see tears welling up in the old man's eyes. I stood at the foot of the bed, not wanting to intrude on their moment, but Mr. Harris looked up at me with a soft smile. "Kevin, I'm so glad you're here too. I didn't know how to get in touch with you, but Buddy, he knew you'd come." "What happened?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Mr. Harris sighed. "It was a heart attack. I didn't see it coming. One minute I was fine, and the next, well, I ended up here. They've been taking good care of me, but I was worried about Buddy. I didn't want him to be alone." "He's been waiting for you," I said, feeling the weight of the past few days lift. "He came to find me and brought me here." Mr. Harris chuckled softly, though it was tinged with exhaustion. "That dog has always had a good sense of where he needs to be, and I'm so glad he brought you. I didn't want to worry you, Kevin, but I'm glad you're here now." We spent the next few hours talking, with Buddy nestled comfortably beside Mr. Harris on the bed. The hospital staff occasionally checked in, smiling at the sight of the old man reunited with his faithful companion. Mr. Harris looked frail, but the joy of being with Buddy, and knowing that I was there, seemed to give him strength. As the evening approached, the doctor came in to speak with Mr. Harris. I stayed by his side, listening as the doctor explained that he would need time to recover, but he was going to be okay. Mr. Harris nodded, his hand resting on Buddy's head, and I could see the relief in his eyes. When the doctor left, Mr. Harris looked at me, his expression serious. "Kevin, I don't have much family left, and I don't want to burden you, but would you help me take care of Buddy until I'm back on my feet?" "Of course," I replied without hesitation. Buddy can stay with me, and I'll bring him to visit you every day. We'll take care of him together." Mr. Harris smiled, his eyes softening. "Thank you, Kevin. You become more than just a friend to us. You're like family." The words touched me deeply, and I felt a warmth spread through my chest. Mr. Harris and Buddy had become my family too, in a way I hadn't fully realized until now. We had been brought together by chance, but our bond had grown into something strong and unbreakable. As I left the hospital that night, with Buddy trotting happily beside me, I knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter in our lives. Mr. Harris would recover, and we would continue to look out for each other, just as we always had. The city, which had once seemed so vast and uncertain, now felt like home, because it was where my friends were.